This story takes place when I was 12 years old, and my brother, Ryan, was 10. My brother and I had just come home from school. We didn't live very far from it, only about a 2-minute walk from it actually. Usually after school had finished, I would grab my backpack, and whatever I had for homework that night, put on my outdoor shoes and start to make my way over to my brother's classroom, where he would be patiently waiting for me to arrive so we could start our walk home together. The walk home was the same as usual. Whenever we walked home, we usually got there at about 3 p.m., and as we got home, we got a snack each, and something like a small bowl of chips, or some cookies and milk, and we would sit at the table to eat together. My mom was a hairdresser at the time, who worked from home because when she had us, she wanted to be there for us and spend a lot of time with us for a while, since she was a single mother and we couldn't afford a babysitter. She would usually finish work at around 4:30 or 5 p.m. most nights, sometimes longer, sometimes earlier depending on her day. My dad worked night shifts, so he was usually asleep during the day and then would be up for dinner. It was one of the days where my mom and dad were going to be going out to get groceries after my mom had just finished up with work. When the time came around, they both got ready to go. Since this was going to be the very first time my parents were going out for about a half an hour and leaving me to look after my brother, I felt very happy, and I felt like a big girl, since I really wanted to prove I could babysit Ryan. That way my parents could spend more time with one another and go out somewhere for dinners or dates whenever they wanted. My dad had sat Ryan and I down to remind us what to do and what not to do. Don't open the door for anyone. We have a key and we'll come through the garage, so it won't ever be us knocking, okay? If you need us for anything, call us right away. Don't wait until it's too late. We'll be gone a maximum of a half hour to get some quick groceries, etc. So after we got a hold of all the information we needed, they gave us our hugs and kisses and left. Ryan and I went downstairs into the playroom. By the way, Ryan and I are very close because we had to go through quite a lot together, and we're also very close in age. We were playing with Lego at the time, trying to build something that Ryan had gotten for his birthday that year. Ryan told me he would be back in a minute, as he was just going to get a drink or some more Lego. I told him okay and kept building and playing. 5 minutes later, though, I can't know what it was, but I suddenly got this weird feeling. I immediately stopped playing and listened in. I could hear my brother speaking. I frowned in confusion. Why would he be calling my parents, and for what? I got up and started making my way to the stairs. I peeked around the wall that led up to the main floor, where our front door, kitchen, and living room was. That's when my heart felt like it had stopped, and my face turned pale. Ryan was speaking to somebody, in the house. The front door was wide open, and a lady, maybe her 50s or so, was standing there in the doorway talking to him. She was actually taking her coat off and inching her way deeper into the house, asking my brother where my mom was, and other things that I can't quite remember. I ran up to him and asked him what the hell he was doing. I pulled him by his wrist and got him behind me. I couldn't get to the home phone that was in the kitchen because I didn't want to leave my brother unattended or leave that lady and not know where she was in our house. I couldn't get myself to talk to her. I was quite a shy kid, but I was frozen. I had no idea how to get this lady out of there. But then I remembered my mom telling me, one day, if someone asked where she was or where my dad was and wanted them, whether it was on the phone or in person, and neither of them were home, to just tell them they were taking a shower or something that indicated they were in the house. So that's what I did. "Where's your mom?" the lady asked in a weird tone. I got a chill, and then worked up enough courage to finally say, "Oh, she's almost done in the shower. She'll be out in a few minutes, actually." The lady stared at both Ryan and I for a moment, and all she did was say, "Oh." She didn't finish whatever she was about to say, because at that moment, someone came in the back door of my house. I turned my head and saw my older sister had just come in after finishing her work for the day. She noticed the woman in our house and ran straight up to us. I can't remember what was said. other than my sister threatening to call the police, but after that, the lady ended up leaving in quite the rush. I turned to Ryan and asked him why he would open the door. He told me he had forgotten that my parents had a key and wouldn't be coming through that way. He told me that the lady had kind of looked like my mom through the window. When my parents returned, my sister told them what had happened and that the lady had left after she had threatened her. My parents were a bit angry at the situation, but they were overall glad we were safe. It took them almost a year to let us stay alone again like that, but it was to make sure that the next time we did, nothing like this would ever happen again. I don't know what that woman's intentions were, and I don't want to know what they were either. My brother learned his lesson that day, not to open the door to anyone when we're alone ever again. This happened to me during my junior year of college. For context, I'm a 22-year-old female. I was driving from my hometown in the Chicago suburbs to the University of Missouri, which is about a 6-hour drive. I made the drive about every 4 to 6 weeks to see my family and my long-distance boyfriend. There are 2 main ways to take to the town my university is in. Stay on the interstate system through central Illinois and St. Louis, or branch out to back roads just after Springfield, Illinois, until picking the interstate back up about 30 minutes from my college. I usually like to take the back roads, simply because it kept me awake with the constant speed limit changes and the occasional towns I'd pass through. But this particular time, I took the interstate system because there was a high potential for winter weather. Here I was, minding my own business, listening to one true crime podcast episode after another, when about an hour from my exit, traffic came to a standstill. Great, I thought. It was already way beyond dark at that point. It was also a Sunday night, and I just wanted to get home and catch a decent night's sleep before my Monday classes. After a while, emergency vehicles flew past the traffic on the shoulder, indicating that there must be some sort of accident just up ahead. After what felt like forever, traffic slowly started crawling again, and eventually started moving a little as we all passed the incident. This is when it started. I will admit, I like to drive fast on the interstate, especially on this particular drive. I mean, what college kid doesn't? I was in the right lane with a decent amount of space between me and the car in front of me. That's when I noticed someone right on my bumper. Seriously? I muttered out loud. Traffic was no longer super heavy, and the person could have easily passed me in the left lane. Suddenly, the car began flashing their brights at me and honking. I was extremely confused. I turned off my podcast and kept a close eye on my rear view. The person continued to flash their brights, half blinding me in the darkness through my mirrors. "Asshole," I said, flooring it into the left lane. I maneuvered in and out of a few cars, attempting to get away from whatever issue this person had. Except, they followed my every move. Being a 21-year-old female, I began to get a sick feeling in my stomach. I had listened to enough true crime and general horror stories to be just the right amount of paranoid. I had read on social media recently about girls from my school encountering sex traffickers in my town and along the interstate that runs through it. One of the town's papers had even run a series of stories regarding multiple sex and human trafficking rings that used this interstate to traffic victims, specifically because it runs the length of the entire country. I shook the disturbing thought out of my head and continued doing about 85 in the right lane, unless I had to go around someone. The car continued to follow me though, flashing its lights and barely letting themselves ever get more than a few cars behind, or behind and beside me. Finally, I took the exit to my university. I looked back, and the car had followed this time as well. It seemed as though the person was trying to get me to pull over. Is there something wrong with my car that I can't see? I wondered silently. Even if there was, There was no way in hell I was pulling over on the side of an interstate in the middle of a dark, rainy night. That's exactly how urban legends or teenage slasher movies start. At this point, though, I had no idea what to do. Looking back, I really should have driven straight to the local police station, but I was too flustered and scared to think straight. I tried to think back on the last hour or so of my drive. Did I cut anyone off? I didn't think so. I didn't think I had done anything to make any drivers around me this pissed. I'm a relatively good driver and tend to mind my own business on the road, not engaging in road rage or anything stupid like that. Stupidly, I began to drive to my apartment. The car followed the whole way, still flashing their lights every so often, but no longer honking behind me. They continued to stay glued to my bumper, though. I began to panic. What if they followed me all the way home? What the hell should I do? Call the police and send them on a wild goose chase to look for me and this car as I'm driving around town? As I approached another small exit off a local highway onto a smaller street that ran past campus and towards my apartment, I had an idea. As I got closer to the exit, I didn't get into the far right lane to turn off. At the very last second, though, I jerked the wheel and careened across the gravel shoulder, so close to the grass that I barely missed driving off the road. As I gunned it down the exit ramp, I glanced up at the overpass. The car had screeched to a halt and was honking its horn maniacally. I cried the rest of the way home, calling my boyfriend and explaining what had just happened. I never got a good enough look at the car to get a license plate number, or really even a good description of the vehicle, so I never reported the incident to police. And to this day, I have no idea what exactly it was that happened that night. My best guess is that whoever this person was, they saw me when we were all stopped on the interstate, waiting for the emergency vehicles to come clear the scene. It's very clear from the stickers I have on my car, one of my university's name and one that said Dog Mom, that I was likely a college-aged female. At this point, all this person had to do was end up next to me, see that I was a woman driving alone on the interstate in the middle of the night, and just have the wrong intentions. So, to the crazy person who followed me for an hour on the dark, rainy interstate, let's not meet. This happened last weekend. My state is still pretty much entirely in shutdown due to COVID. I'm working as an administrative assistant for an organization. I've been working here since I was 16, 18 now. The office where I work is almost completely empty all the time, and it's really eerie from how it was pre-pandemic. The building shares a lobby with a hotel that has little restaurants, shops, art galleries, etc. Pre-COVID, it was a really lively, happening place pretty much all around the clock. So now, most of the people in the offices are working from home, and the shops, for the most part, have either gone out of business or are currently closed. There's still one open coffee shop, but that's about it. So I usually work from home, but I needed the office space this time for things I had to get done. I went into the office around noon. It was pretty much a ghost town. Nobody else seemed to be in this huge building, and the only sound is the normal lobby music, echoing throughout the empty, lifeless building. I get in the elevator and go up to my office to begin work. However, I started to get this off feeling, just like not being alone in the office, and I got extremely creeped out. I kept checking around the office, but I couldn't find anything, so I just got back to work. It's around noon at this point, when I begin to hear footsteps in the hallway. Because of the new COVID rules, we have to sign in and out of the office in order to do contact tracing. I go into the front office to see if anyone had signed in after me, but no one had. I tell myself I'm just being paranoid, and I try to get back to work. So here I am, focused on my task again, when I hear a door softly close shut. My heart starts beating really heavily, and I go back to the front office. Still, no one else had signed in. I decided it was best for me to just leave right there and then, Maybe call my boss and ask him to come back with me to collect my stuff later. So I go down to the lobby, which is still eerie and empty. I call my boss and ask him what to do, because I had left my work laptop in there. My boss told me to do whatever is safest for me, and if there was a security guard on duty, to go find them and ask them to walk me out of the lobby to my car and alert them of the issue. I go to the security desk and the guard there tells me he's been there all morning and has only seen me and one other person go in the elevators that day, but he didn't know what floor they got off on. I stay there with him for a while, and he sees a person get on the elevator at a floor below mine and leave. He tells me he thinks the noises I heard were probably just an echo from that person on the floor below me, but if I want, he'll go to the office with me. I tell him I'm fine, that it's all good, fragile masculinity over here. I take a step back up to my office to begin working. As I'm starting to get settled in with my work, I again hear footsteps. I look down the hallway, but I can't see anybody. I decide it's not worth it for me to stay there. I was too freaked out. I grab my stuff and head out the door and make my way over to the elevators. It feels like an eternity just waiting for them to get there. Suddenly, I feel like someone is watching me again, and I turn to look towards the office entrance. The next thing that happened freaked me out so badly that at the time I just couldn't comprehend it. Lo and behold, I see a very tiny woman, maybe 5'2", who I didn't recognize at all, and I knew didn't work for the company. She was peeking through the glass of the office door, standing there totally naked. She makes eye contact with me and runs back towards the office until she's out of view. I was stunned. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. I jump in the elevator and press the lobby button and shut the door as fast as I can. I go to the security guard and tell him what happened as well. He says it's impossible that anyone else was in there with me, because they always keep a log of people leaving and entering, which floor times, and no one else had entered my floor in 3 whole days except for my boss. I call my boss and tell him what happened, and he was sufficiently weirded out. Anyways, he, another coworker, and I decided to check out the office the next day together and find that someone had taken all the office snacks in the break room. We find in our relaxation office, the office for when people are having a bad day and need a place to relax, a pair of socks, a brush with lots of hair and dried flakes of blood on it, and a grocery bag filled with receipts, and other random junk like thumbtacks, rocks, a small dollar store plushie, even used Q-tips with earwax, but we could not find anyone in the office. Sorry, this is a long one. This happened a few years ago, but I still think about it to this day. I was on holiday in a city on the other side of the country, celebrating my 21st birthday with my best friend. We were having an amazing night out, with a few too many drinks, and ended up meeting 2 guys. Let's call them Andrew and Billy. They seemed like really cool guys, and we were into them. So when they asked us back to their hotel room, we said yes. Obviously a silly idea, but we were very young and very drunk. And things were great on the way back to the hotel room. We were all laughing and having a great time in general. When we got to the room, though, there were 2 other men there as well. Let's call them Ricky and JD, who were at least 10 to 15 years older than us. They gave us really creepy vibes, but we tried to brush it off. We asked Andrew and Billy just who these guys were, and they said that they were their colleagues, as they were in the city for work, and the company had paid for their rooms. Andrew and Billy were in different rooms, but we were all partying in Andrew's room that he shared with Ricky. I got too drunk, and my friend put me to bed. She said that she was going to Billy's room, and asked if I would be okay with Andrew. I said yes. And keep in mind, my friend didn't have a phone either, so we basically had no way of getting in contact with each other. Another extremely stupid thing, I know. I'd been in the bed for a while with Andrew, just talking and chilling when he suddenly says, "I just have to pop out real quick. I'll be right back." I assumed he meant just out of the bedroom, not out of the actual hotel room, but he left to get something from Billy's room. Anyways, I was just watching TV in the bed when the bedroom door burst open. I assumed it was Andrew, but my heart sank when I saw that it was Ricky, the weird colleague. He walked into the room and sat on the bed. Keep in mind, I'm very naked at this point, trying to cover myself up with the blanket. "You do realize that everyone's left you alone in here, right? It's just you all alone. No one's here, and no one can hear you." He continued edging closer and closer to me on the bed. At this point, I was completely speechless and terrified. I was completely frozen in fear, and I had no idea what to do. I tried to say something, but nothing would come out. He definitely sensed my fear, but for some reason he just got up and left. A sense of relief flooded over me, and I felt a bit silly for overreacting. That was until I heard JD, the other random colleague, shouting, "Get the fuck back in there! What are you doing? This isn't what we discussed. Get back in there and do what you were meant to do. Who gives a fuck about that whore? Just get back in there and do what you need to." I ran to the bathroom and locked myself in because I was so scared, but there was no way out, and the only way to get out of the hotel room was through the front door. I would have to walk right past Ricky and JD to get there. As I sat there terrified, I had a million thoughts rushing through my head, and I had no idea what to do. I knew, though, that I had to escape. I decided my only option was to just leave the room and be ready to defend myself if things were to go pear-shaped. I threw my clothes on and grabbed my shoes. I opened the door, and Ricky and JD were sitting on a couch close to the bedroom door. JD said, "Hey, sexy, where are you going in such a rush? Come and join us. Come on, come here right now." No thanks. I ran to the front door and ripped it open. When I got out, I was so relieved, but I was still in a random hotel in a random city with no way to contact my friend. I thought the best option was go down to the lobby and just wait. As I was walking, though, I heard the two men yelling down the hall. "Where are you? We know you aren't too far away. Come back and join us. You know you want to." It was Ricky and JD. I was absolutely terrified by this point. I started sprinting to the elevator, and I could hear them sprinting right behind me. I never knew I could run so fast, but I just continued and never looked back. I felt like I was running forever until I reached the end of the corridor, and my worst nightmare had come true. I missed the turn off of the elevator. Fucking idiot. This meant I had to turn around and run back towards where I could hear their voices, still yelling down the hallway. I found the elevator and hopped in, but I could hear their voices getting louder and louder. I didn't want to imagine what would happen if they got into that elevator with me. The door finally closed after what felt like a lifetime. I thought I would go down to the lobby and just wait there, because at least there would be people there, so there would be some form of safety. I got to the lobby, though, and realized that there was no one in sight. No one at all, not even behind the desk. I sat down on a couch and didn't know what to do with myself. I was absolutely terrified that Ricky and JD would come down to the lobby after me. I heard the elevator door ding and open up. My heart stopped, but thankfully it was Andrew. I told him what had happened. He was outraged that his colleagues had done that, and he took me immediately to where my best friend was. Everything turned out fine in the end, thankfully, but it could have been a lot worse.